How did your representative vote? Let's break it down. Each of Washington State's 10 Congress members voted along party lines, with the 7 Democrats approving the resolution and the 3 Republicans rejecting it. Live to D.C. now, where right now congressional Democrats are preparing for the next phase of the process, including nationally televised hearings. So in Washington, that means trying to appeal to both Democrats and Republican voters across the state. King 5's Glenn Farley is in D.C., where he asked Democrats how they'll make the case for impeachment.
Washington split like the rest of the nation, down party lines. All 3 Republicans from Washington voted against this resolution. All 7 Democrats voted for it. But even in Western Washington, there are some blended political districts politically, and you can see how the language can change.
Impeachment is not a good thing. This is not anywhere that I wanted to go, anywhere that my colleagues wanted to go. It is an extreme step, but the actions of the president warranted it, because at the end of the day, he thinks he's above the law. He literally thinks the law doesn't apply to him.
From House veteran and head of the Armed Services Committee Adam Smith to newcomer Kim Schreier, with the district ranging from Issaquah to a more conservative piece of eastern Washington.
What are your constituents from that side telling you?
So everybody tells me the same thing, that they want to know. They just want information. They also don't want me to make any decisions without getting all of the information. And so I am true to my word, just saying, give us the information so we can make good decisions.
Washington Democrats all voted for the continuation of the impeachment inquiry. Derek Kilmer represents the Olympic and Kitsap Peninsulas.
You know, what my constituents want is not only to ensure that Congress upholds its constitutional obligations, but they also want Congress to make their lives better.
And Susan Del Bene, who represents Redmond and much of the east side and north.
I think this is about facts and the data, and I think that the data has been very clear so far. So I think the more the public engages, the more they're going to be very concerned about what this president has done.
Again, there are only 3 Republicans in the House from Washington State here, 1 on the west side, Jamie Herrera Butler. We offered the chance for all 3 of them to come and speak as well. We did not hear back. However, Jamie Herrera Butler, who represents Southwest Washington, did post a statement on her Facebook page, part of which goes, "The president's phone conversation with the Ukrainian president and the circumstances surrounding it raise serious questions deserving of a full impartial investigation and the airing of facts. I will support a full and fair investigation, and I ask the House leadership to change its course. Stop today's farce of an impeachment inquiry, and then let's work together to create an investigation that the public will see as fair and full, with all the facts in plain view." So again, very much divided, very much a lot of the same kinds of words you're hearing nationwide on this controversial of issues. In Washington, D.C., Glenn Farley, King 5 News.